In 2019, Boris Johnson won a general election with the biggest Conservative majority in 3 decades. In September, Liz Truss became Prime Minister after winning just 81,000 votes from Tory members. And today, Rishi Sunak has become Prime Minister by winning just under 200 votes from MPs and not a single member of the public. He's inherited a bruised party that has limped through a period marked by economic catastrophe, political turmoil, and an air of general chaos. Boris Johnson promised, or threatened, depending how you look at it, to return, but ultimately failed to reclaim the position his own party wrestled from him just 3.5 months ago. So, now we've had 3 prime ministers in 4 months, but does the revolving door end here? Conservative former Minister Victoria Atkins said no one in the party is proud of the last 6 weeks, but that now they will unite behind Rishi Sunak. But will they? And is that it? With the Tories still returning dismal poll results and Labour still way ahead, can Rishi Sunak really stave off the collapse of the Conservative Party and, more importantly, the country? And that's what we're here to discuss tonight on The Table, a new discussion show from Byline TV where we aim to have productive conversations about the issues that matter. At this table, we're getting straight to the heart of the issues. There's no hiding behind sound bites, and we'll be exploring the cultural and philosophical underpinnings behind our positions. So I'm thrilled to be joined at the table tonight by veteran journalist John Sweeney, analyst, commentator and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona, former Labour MP and leader of the Labour group on Kensington and Chelsea Council, Dent, Coad, and Talk TV host Cristo Foufas. So, let's get into it. Albie, I'm going to start with you. Is Rishi Sunak the answer to the country's prayers?
I think Rishi Sunak is going to make an excellent leader of the Conservative Party and an excellent Prime Minister. I'm personally quite pleased because it's the first time that a leadership hopeful that I've backed has ever actually become the leader of the party. So hopefully change is going to come. But look, I agree with Victoria Atkins. No Conservative is proud of what's happened over the last 6 weeks. To be blunt, it's been a complete disaster. The mini budget went too hard and too fast. We spooked the markets with a combination of the tens of billions of pounds to be spent on unfunded tax cuts. And also, of course, the hundreds of billions of pounds being spent on the energy support scheme, which is being put in. So both of those measures together spooked the markets and ended up and led to us being in this awful situation which we are now in. Rishi Sunak predicted that that would cause the markets to get spooked, the gilt yields to, deteriorate, and this general economic malaise that we have seen. But one thing where I think Liz Truss was actually right is that she diagnosed the economic problems of the UK correctly. We have had sluggish growth for far too long. We do need to get that growth rate back up. Perhaps the way she went about it was wrong, but the diagnosis was right. And now I think it is up to Rishi Sunak and also the Labour Party to come up with their plan to fix the broken UK economy.
OK, very interesting. Now, I can see, John, you were raising your eyebrows at Liz Truss's diagnosis of why we haven't growth, and I think perhaps I'll bring you in at this point.
Well, Albie, the Conservatives are a fiduciary death cult. Honestly, and the primary massive elephant doing a dump right now in the room is Brexit. We are massively underperforming compared to our European former partners in the European Union. Why is that? It's because they're still in the great European single market and we're outside. And until you fix that problem, the British economy will continue to tank. Quite obviously, Rishi is a smart guy and also as somebody, I'm sure we all care about this, but it's great that he's come from, he's a brown prime minister. Good on him, as far as that is concerned. And I note that Labour has never done anything like as much in terms of getting women into number 10, and now you've got a brown prime minister. Good. Other than that, he's not addressing the elephant in the room, which is Brexit, which is tanking our economy. It was amazing how badly Liz Truss performed in terms of spooking the markets. When I was little, several thousand years ago, that the Conservatives were the party of sound money. And now they're bonkers.
Well,
and like there's a whole bunch of other sort of social stuff we can talk about, but very, very simply, I spent a lot of my time in Ukraine, and I met some poor woman who was destitute, right in the front of the front line, and the shells were coming in, and I just wanted to give her some money, and she said, I don't want your money. I'm not talking to you for your money. And I said, yes, no, I get this, but it's pounds and they're the same equivalent as hryvnias. Like it was a joke. But that's what the Conservatives have done with pound sterling. I mean, don't you feel ashamed?
Hold on.
Well, no, it's tanked.
Do you disagree that Liz Truss's diagnosis of the British economy not
Yes.
growing quickly? Do you think
No,
that was
I-
wrong?
no, no,
By the way,
I think the reason-
Absolutely.
I think everything she thinks is fundamentally wrong.
So we
to say
agree
that
on
you
that
want to
point.
stimulate growth when they've spent 12 years not investing in people and skills and infrastructure and hampering wages.
Michael Gove said to borrow money to cut taxes is not Conservative.
Look, I didn't support Liz in the last leadership election, so we can have a debate about the past or we can talk about the future. And we actually, we actually agree that the British economy needs to grow more quickly. So my point is that Liz Truss's diagnosis that the British economy needs to grow more quickly was the correct one. And prior to Liz Truss coming into power, nobody was talking about economic growth in that way,
the economy needs to grow and I support Brexit. It's an oxymoron.
Of course you can. That's
no,
not
there
an
was a
oxymoron.
chap,
Look-
I don't know if you heard, Radio 4, he was some big money man the other day, and he literally said, if we do not rejoin the single market quickly, the IMF are going to have to bail us out. It's that bad. Emma, let's let you get a word in.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've similarly been worrying about Brexit, the possibilities of Brexit for a very, very long time. If you just look at the built environment, that housing building of all kinds, which is one of our biggest employers in this country, so it's very much part of the economy. For years and years, we depended entirely on skilled labour from Eastern Europe. Fantastic, really good workers. They come over here, they do their things, spend some of their money home. But at the same time, we weren't actually thinking long term. Why don't we use those skilled workers to train our own people, our own youth who had no future otherwise because they they went back. They were starting to go back about 8 years ago with Brexit looming. And they went back in droves. We are now 250,000 skilled workers short in the built environment. We don't have the materials. We don't have the skilled labour. We don't have the expertise in management or anything. And we just left this to the people that we now no longer want working over here. It's just insane. And I don't know who is doing strategic thinking, because nobody thinks strategically. That's what I see. And I do see, for better or worse, previous governments, maybe there were some big brains actually thinking, if we're going to do that, if we're going to cut the tie from Europe, actually, let's just make sure that we can feed people and that we have the materials here and that we can we have factories building semiconductors so that we can, we can get all our tech stuff going.
There's no other European country that's part of the EU suffering any kind of economic problems.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about what we have failed to do here. And even with the fuel crisis, we have got rid of all our gas holders and developed the sites. And that was really short-sighted.
Yes, the storage,
really short-sighted, because we should have had storage backup. There's no strategic thought, and I really don't understand how we get away with it. Well, we haven't got away with it, because it's all short-term thinking.
OK, so that said, Rishi Sunak, if we were giving him a chance, he's appointing his cabinet today. I was pretty appalled to see that he'd put Braverman in. I thought that was a huge error. And we have got Hunt in as Chancellor, which seems sensible. But isn't, Cristo, this just reshuffling, as following Emma's point, the same minds and the same ideas and the same values that we've had really sort of continuously for 12 years? Is there going to be anything fresh?
Which has been democratically voted for by the British people, number one. Secondly, as was Brexit. I loathe Brexit. I was a Remainer. I am a Remainer. But I think the point that Albie was making, and I think we've been a bit unfair on him, was that, look, Liz Truss's point about growth needing to happen was that we can complain about Brexit all we like, but we are where we are, and we have to, for want of a better expression, play the cards that we have. And with the cards that we've got to come up with ways in which we can grow the economy. It would be great if we could all say, let's forget about Brexit, call it a blip and pretend it never happened. But we can't do that because it was a democratic vote. Once Boris... I agree that there was some grey area before Boris got into power in 2019 with an overwhelming majority to get Brexit done. He didn't, but that was what people wanted with that majority. So I just feel like going over the Brexit ground isn't helpful. I feel like what we need to do is work with what we have now and try and come up with solutions now.
Is it not linked? Wasn't Liz Truss enabled by the think tanks who were proponents of Brexit? So it's like, if you get in and you're not part of the EU, you can take away regulations and rights and you can do X, Y and Z. It was sort of part of the ethos. Sorry?
What rights are being taken away?
Oh.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay. The right of free movement inside
That's
Europe.
not really a human right, though, is it?
No,
I think
but
one of the main reasons that people voted to leave the European Union was they wanted to have better control of migration. That's not an awful thing to say. We want to end free movement of people and have more control over our migration policy.
They are looking at taking away. They've been looking at taking away workers' rights and deregulating planning regulations.
Actually, Gemma, Jacob Rees-Mogg came up with an entire plethora of employment regulations that could change, and Liz Truss actually rejected all of them. Look, we're sat here. You said rights are being taken away.
Yeah.
I asked you which rights are being taken away.
Suella Braverman's
no one's
been
been able to
talking
answer the
about
question.
going to the
You said
European-
free movement of people, which is not a right in the same
The right
sense
to
as the right to
protest,
protest. That's not to do with the European Union, though, is it? I mean, let's just be very clear. You're trying to link all of the economic problems that Britain is going through at this very moment in time to the European Union, as if no other country in Europe is suffering from inflation or labour shortages
so let me
or
answer.
resource shortages.
Okay, so let me answer that.
It's not a reasonable argument.
It is a reasonable argument because...
So other European countries aren't suffering similar or not worse labour shortages or inflation?
The British economy is underperforming compared to our European...
No, it's not.
Yes,
all of the economies of Europe are underperforming.
Okay, so...
Inflation is at 17% in the Czech Republic.
So, I stand by what I say, that the British economy is underperforming because it's outside the European market. And yes, you can point to various things, what's happening in Czechia, whatever, all of that. It doesn't really matter. The problem is, Liz Truss said, we're going for growth, while ignoring the problem of Brexit. Now, when you talk about we've got to play with the cards we've got, no. Let's get a new set of cards.
Is Keir Starmer ignoring the problem of Brexit?
Hold on a second. Let me just develop my thought. I believe that we should repent our decision, which was only a small minority of people. There was a small margin in favour of Brexit. I suspect that dark Russian money paid for the Brexit vote in some way, in the same way they also, dark Russian actors helped get Donald Trump elected. You may disagree with me, but the thing to do is to repent Brexit, rejoin, and then rejoice.
At the very least, rejoin the single market, which was never part of the deal anyway.
And the problem is our economy will continue to tank until we do that.
Yeah.
And the guy on the Today programme, whose name has suddenly vanished from my Alzheimer's-ridden brain, said exactly the same thing, and an awful lot of people in the money markets around the world say that. So there is a particular trust problem. She's gone, but Rishi Sunak has a continuing problem in that we have exited the world's biggest single market for no good reason. And the moment we get back in, life will become better for us.
It is for a good reason. Again, I can't believe I'm fighting for Brexit because I'm called the biggest Ramona on Talk TV and how I've lasted on there.
Hello, my name's John Sweeney and I'm a far bigger Ramona than you are.
Fine.
I'm a rejoiner.
However, one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things we would have to have if we did rejoin the single market would be the free movement of people that comes along with that, many of the countries that aren't within the EU, that are within the single market, have the free movement of people. Now, I believe, rightly or wrongly, as Albie said, that a massive number of people who voted to leave the EU did so because they wanted an end to free movement of people. So we would be essentially saying the thing you most voted for in order to get Brexit, we will be reneging on that.
But
so what will that do to trust in democracy?
But they aren't going to get that anyway, because the next trade deal, like with India or whatever, the quid pro quo will be, we need workers, and so they'll just come from India. They haven't solved anything.
You cannot run a country's economic policy on fear of immigration alone, and actually all the poll numbers at the moment are in favour of the people accept that Brexit was a mistake, and the number of people who've got buyer's remorse it keeps on going up. So the idea that every single part of your economic policy is predicated by fear of the other,
that is not the case, John. Look, the British people voted to leave the European Union in 2016.
By a small margin.
It is not helpful, John. It is not helpful to rehash a discussion about Brexit. Both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, it's not either of their policy to have another referendum or to rejoin the European Union.
And they're wrong about that.
The Lib Dems got slaughtered at the 2019 general election.
Okay, but by the way, that's the whole point of being a Lib Dem.
We need to stop talking about the past.
Slaughter us.
We need to stop talking about the past and start talking about the future.
You keep on saying.
And rejoining the European Union is not on the agenda.
Oh, it is on the.
Okay, let's let Emma.
Thank you very much. Sorry. I'm not so good at shouting over everybody else.
I apologise.
Yes, all right. No, I feel very strongly what we have at the moment, and we will have in the future, Albie, is most of our cabinet members and our Prime Minister and so on are very, very good at making money out of money. They're not good at making money out of things. They're not good at looking after industry. And I'm an early riser, and I listen to Farming Today, and it's amazing. It's not only amazing because you learn so much, but actually it's also devastating, because there are industry after industry of people making food for people to eat here. Milk and whatever, from all over the country. Every single one of them is a natural Tory voter, and their businesses are being utterly destroyed. And I turn it on in the morning, oh God, it's absolutely depressing. The fishing industry, of course, the Scottish fishing industry is completely destroyed. Yeah. The Cornish fishing industry is destroyed. The farmers growing arable, dairy, they can't get the foodstuffs over. They can't grow. They can't, because we have a shortage of nitrogen to fertilise the fields. The endless ramifications of Brexit on this whole industry, which keeps us going, is absolutely terrifying. And none of the people at the top making money out of money, and I'm sure we need some people making money out of money, but I think we should also be making money out of things and feeding people. And you put something in the ground and it grows. That's actually amazing. There's nobody who actually understands that, and we do not have the expertise. It's like with the built environment. Where is the expertise? Who are they listening to? They're not listening to the experts.
Well, and on that note, I find it just disconcerting that in our government, people can go into roles that are so crucial. Okay, and I understand that Ben Wallace is staying in defence. That's a good thing.
He's a good bloke.
Yeah, he's a good bloke. And also it's continuity, right? Because we've got this terrible war going on. So good, stay, please, you know what you're doing. But this idea, education, it breaks my heart. How many awful people have been in that role, in and out, and schools are facing 9 out of 10 or something aren't going to be able to afford to pay their staff and the energy bills. So my question, bringing it back to what we're supposed to be talking about, Rishi Sunak's kind of like revolving cabinet, how are we supposed to have, as an electorate, trust that someone can go from, I'm going to be a foreign secretary tomorrow, where's the experience? Exactly. Why should you be in that role? Does it not worry you, Cristo, that it's just sort of, like I said before, the same minds, same set of people, just swapping jobs?
Well, yeah, but I'm hoping that the person at the top, being someone like Rishi, who seems a little bit more stable than what we've seen over the last few years, will hopefully stamp his authority on what he wants, because let's not forget, the person at the top, we had it with Boris, it does tend, the chaos and disorder tends to trickle down from there. And secondly, I think that this is a really important really important point regarding how we are where we are. I've noticed Keir Starmer and various other people making real, almost glee. Look at the high inflation. Look at the high interest rates that the Tories have given us. No, actually, interest rates were going up before the chaos of the last 3 prime ministers. No, inflation was going up as a result of what was happening in Ukraine. Now, have they made mistakes since then with the Truss incompetence? Absolutely. But you can't lay every problem that we are facing at the moment at the door of the Tories. It's cost-push inflation. It's external factors that have given us that inflation.
We're in a terrible, terrible situation. And
Yeah,
what
we
interests
are.
me is that Rishi Sunak, yes, fiscally he's wise, he's experienced and all of that stuff, but he's to me, where's the compassion, right? So it's
Furlough, where's the compassion? He wrote checks for the British public.
Wait a minute, right?
You asked the question.
He did, yes, and I think it's fair because 25 people committed suicide who were excluded out of those 3 million people who were desperate for help. Desperate. And they slipped through and there was nothing. And they campaigned and they were talking, whistling into the wind. Thousands of them have terrible depression and 25 of them took their lives, okay?
Hospitality completely wiped
Yeah,
out.
so yes, he implemented furlough really effectively. It was really quick. It was rolled out well, okay? I'm not saying the man is clueless or talentless. Clearly he isn't. But when I talk about compassion, I'm talking about teachers at the moment, you know, who can't afford to eat, nurses, etc. Is he going to understand what is needed to help the NHS, what is needed in education, and thing that most people care about, not flipping bankers and bonuses and tax rates. Real politics is people. Is he the man for that
we
job?
have doctors and firefighters going to food banks now.
Yeah.
You know, in Kensington, Chelsea one was the richest borough in the universe, according to one of the Tories. We have 23 food banks and they're running out of food already. Winter hasn't even come yet. And people coming in, so I haven't eaten for a couple of days, I had to feed my children. This is very, very real and it's happening right there in Kensington. Absolutely shocking. Doctors
One of the
and
richest boroughs,
firefighters,
supposedly.
doctors and firefighters, and my God, they need to be fed properly.
And he wasted 15.3 billion by not investigating that COVID fraud. That was companies that didn't exist. You know, there were some serious flaws going on and it was just
So you were just
disregarded.
attacking him for not spending enough money, and now you're attacking him for spending too much money. Look, the point is, I think
just letting fraud
look,
go by isn't spending.
let me finish my point. His argument in favour of the way that he implemented those support schemes was they needed to get into place quickly, and therefore the checks and balances that are usually put in place were not put in place. Now, I personally think that was a bad choice. I'm sure you agree with me. But the point that you initially raised about him not being compassionate, I don't know how you can sit here with a straight face and say Rishi Sunak isn't compassionate.
I asked a
when
question.
he literally, well, I even asked the question, when we all know, and maybe we're beneficiaries of the furlough scheme, this entire country's economy
Every country did a furlough scheme.
would have crumbled. So now
It's
you
like
discredit. Are you discrediting that entirely?
No,
You feel they did a bad job over COVID?
No, I didn't say
you think
that.
he did a good job over COVID?
Well, if you let me speak,
what do
I
you
said
think?
he rolled out a very effective, efficient scheme that was rolled out quickly.
So he did a good
and
job
that
over
worked.
COVID.
He did it. It's nuanced. It's nuanced,
Gemma,
right?
the
Something
point
can be
is,
lots of things.
the point is, your initial question was essentially the premise of the question was he's not compassionate.
Okay,
he
I'll
is
change the
compassionate.
question. What have the Tories done in the last 12 years for ordinary people?
What are so many good things the Conservative Party has
List
done
them.
over the last 12 years. We've got our unemployment rate down to some of the lowest rates.
we haven't got any
that it's ever
workers
been.
here.
It's not because we haven't got any workers. That's
It is. It's
total
because
nonsense.
the NHS have got hundreds of thousands. You're saying the building industry is desperate.
With long COVID,
So it's not a good thing.
because they didn't jump on COVID for quick enough. As we know, they didn't jump on COVID quick enough. Every other country was doing it.
You can't blame Rishi for that. You can blame the buffoon that we had before him. I mean, the Randy buffoon wasn't quick enough.
About Tory government.
I want
so
to get
this is
back
the
to what
answer.
they've done for ordinary people.
Right, so they lifted the income tax threshold, taking more people out of tax, and now less people are paying tax in the first place. The economy, actually, compared to our European partners, was actually growing quite well until recently. As I mentioned before, the employment rate now is at the highest that it's been in a very long time.
That's not a good thing.
Of course it's a good thing. More people
Isn't.
in employment,
You've got 2 million
less
people
people unemployed.
who they're trying to drag out of like disability to go do what? Slaughter pigs.
But do you
Insane.
understand why the government are trying to get people who left the workforce after COVID back into work? Do you understand why that's happening?
Yeah, please
Because it's actually,
You know, Albie, who are actually being forced to apply for jobs they have no qualifications for. I don't know if you actually do this. As a councillor, and having been a councillor for 16 years, I deal with this every day. People are forced to apply for jobs. I know what the jobs are because we get the stats from the job centre. I know what the jobs are that are waiting. Mostly they're skilled jobs or semi-skilled jobs. And the people who are jobless, unemployed, do not have the skills, but they have to keep on applying every day for jobs for which they do not have the skills, and they're not being trained to do them either. It's an absolute mess. It really is a mess. And there are people already having to do jobs which they're not qualified for and messing up and then feeling bad and depressed and so on. Depression related to what is going on around the country is horrific. And my God, we had it bad enough in North Kent already after Grenfell. But there are literally people on the edge right now who aren't going to make it through winter because they are hopeless. They have no hope at all. None.
Rishi has a problem in that he is, I believe, the richest MP in the House of Commons. It says in the Bible, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, you can say that's hyperbole or whatever, but he has a problem in that he is fantastically and fabulously rich because he married his incredibly rich wife, whose father is a billionaire who does business with Russia. Now, none of that looks good. And when you balance the real grinding poverty out there with this extraordinary rich man saying everybody's got to do their bit to help the economy, it won't look good. Now, I want the guy as Prime Minister to succeed because I don't like living in a country which is becoming a joke. But I want the pound to be sound. I want us to get our good place back in the world. But he has a serious problem in doing all of these things. And the latest news is some of his cabinet picks. And one of them is he's picked
Suella Braverman for Home Secretary.
And that strikes me as that she is racist.
How is Suella racist?
In that she is her policy of, for example, she's in favour of sending people to Rwanda.
Is that a racist policy?
I think it is.
How is it racist?
I think it's racist because, and listen, it's difficult for me to argue this because I'm white and you're brown.
Well, it's not if you believe it. Argue
Okay, good point, thank you. She is saying that people, many of whom are economic migrants and some are genuine refugees for political reasons, reasons of terror, whatever, are coming to Britain for sanctuary, that they are all to go to not a good place in Africa. And I've actually been to Rwanda, and it was '88, but it's not a good country at all. And
you see, there are people that would say that
policy
statement in itself is racist. To say
I
that
don't know.
Rwanda's this sort of African third world backwater, which is kind of how you're describing it.
Okay, well, so
I
listen-
find that quite offensive as
Well,
someone that's
Albie,
half
okay.
African myself, actually.
Albie, I mean, I'll tell you what I did there, which was
in 1988,
yeah,
2022.
But we were arguing earlier about, you were saying we've got to look at the future, and I think the future is formed by the past. But what I saw was Rwandan prisoners being dragooned to pick up dead bodies of Burundians from the river after a massacre in Burundi. This is not a happy place. Lots of
24 years ago.
Can
yes,
I just
but
say,
however, but wait. Yes, I was there 24 years ago. There have been reports by a number of human rights charities saying that what happens in Rwanda is not good. So I don't think your
If
time point.
if they were being sent to Sweden, would you have a problem?
but she wouldn't do that because
I have
she's
I have a
using...
problem. So I am ancestrally Irish, and my ancestors came to Britain because they were fleeing the potato famine. And I have a problem with anybody who says to economic migrants who are seeking a better life, don't come here. And I have a problem with that because, yes, it's difficult.
But if
and
they're
yes, we
illegal migrants, do you not think that the country should do something about that?
As Gemma was saying, all of this is nuanced. All of this is nuanced, and we are still, whatever it is, like the 5th or 6th or 7th, the number keeps on dying, richest economy in the world.
all in the
I
top
have to
5%.
say, there aren't that many economic migrants who want to go to Russia or North Korea or China. Why is that? Because these are horrible societies. In a funny way, it's a compliment. People want to come to Britain. Now, how we deal with that is very, very difficult. And what it's led us to do is, it's ended up with this act of economic self-harm. But I do not think what Suella Braverman said in her previous utterances, existences, as a cabinet minister was good at all. And I think that he's made a major political mistake in appointing that woman to that high office, where having an understanding of civilised tolerance for other people is absolutely baked into the job, and I don't think she's got that.
I completely agree, and I'm going to take the word racist out of it because it's so contentious.
Okay.
But what I will say is I think it's a vile policy. I think it's shameful. It flouts international law. And to tell me, oh, Rwanda's lovely. No,
I didn't say Rwanda was lovely.
I
didn't say that.
No,
Okay,
I apologise. I didn't put that word. But you were sort of intimating like she's chosen it as a deterrent. She's talking about it being a deterrent, which in itself is rank. And to sit there and say to the editor of The Telegraph, I dream with so much relish and glee, talking about people who are petrified, terrified people who have rubbish lives. They have fled where it is. And you know what, even if they're Albanian and they're economic migrants, well, I don't know what it's like to live in Albania and want so desperately to come and make more money. It's probably not great, right? So you're talking about human beings and this sort of othering please let me finish, taking so much joy from sticking them on a plane against their wishes. Human beings, like people traffickers, with people probably going, I don't want to go, scared to get off on that. It's sick in the head.
Right, so I thought some of the comments that Suella made at conference were a bit strange. The one that you're referencing is one of those comments that I thought was strange.
I'm glad you think that as well.
But on the Rwanda policy itself, it's not a policy that I relish, but I can understand why it is in place, because ultimately,
but it doesn't work.
Ultimately, the small boats crossing the channel, thousands, I think 1,000 in a day at one point over the summer, is a big issue for a lot of Conservative voters.
In fact, it's gone up.
And I would like to see, alongside the deterrent, actually, not just a strong deterrent, but also, some proper cooperation with France and the opening of some safe and legal routes.
Yeah.
But there needs to be deterrent and safe and legal routes.
Okay, I think that the devil is in the detail in this, as many of you have said. I thought Suella Braverman's comments were awful, relishing in this, and I don't love the Rwanda policy. The reason I don't love it is because I get the principle behind it. The principle I understand, and that is that if your goal is to stop the boats coming over from France, incidentally, which is a safe country, but if you want to stop the boats coming over, if you look at places like Australia, for instance, where they stopped boats coming and processed them off Australia, their refugee crossings after a few years went to zero. Now, if you're trying to stop people traffickers making money and people dying in the Channel, then on that optic, it works. Australia is a demonstration that it works. The big flaw with it, and where I think it is discompassionate, is that what should have happened is, and what should happen if it is still implemented, is they negotiate with France and say, right, this is where you process if you are a migrant, if you're an asylum seeker. If you do not go via this route to this processing centre and you choose to cross the Channel, then the Rwanda policy
And why did the previous Conservative Prime Minister call the President of France couldn't be certain whether he's friend or foe?
Yeah, I agree with that. You won't get an argument from
Do you know what Suella Braverman said about President Macron?
Which was?
She said he was absolutely a friend and then complimented him in French.
And then insulted Modi.
Fantastic.
So, Emma, I'm going to just quickly bring Emma in. Go on.
Thank you very much. Yes, I want to talk a bit about this policy because I do think it's absolutely repellent to send people who've come from unknown horrors who want to escape. And we have a vast immigrant population in North Kensington, and I've heard all their stories, and some of them are absolutely terrifying. terrifying. We've had people who were trafficked and tortured and everything. I've heard their stories because they tell me everything. Bless them. And I wouldn't want to send any of them anywhere. Why are we punishing people before they've been found guilty of anything? And these people, a lot of people are very, very vulnerable indeed. And we have a duty as decent human beings, surely, to look after people who are in need. Why, you know, I think that the whole thing is an absolute disgrace. And I understand, you know, they could be processed in France and so on. We have to understand that they're being lied to by these traffickers. They're lied to. And they believe what they're told. They aren't suddenly going to, oh, you know, there's a nice shed over there and they'll be looked after and so on. The people, it's very, very powerful clique, which is run, you know, it's an international, you know, gang. It's an international business. Network, it is indeed. And it's absolutely evil and they don't care and they will tell them anything. And they believe the people traffickers. They won't believe a shed full of British officials or whatever we might dream up. They will go with the people traffickers because they believe them and they lie. So, you know, what are we going to stop? Are we going to stop the people trafficking? Who's like the top drug dealers? Or are we actually going to go further back and look at the countries where people are so terrified that they have to leave? Are we actually going to deal with that somehow? Because people are coming over here because life at home is intolerable.
The issue is, though, well, there's a few issues. Firstly, we are a very tolerant and welcoming country. Look at Ukraine. When we could physically see and we believed as a nation, because I think a big problem that we have in this country is we don't believe, rightly or wrongly, but if you look at the statistics, not every single person who is making that boat journey is fleeing a war zone. They're fleeing France, they're fleeing Albania, and some of them are exactly in the position, the heartbreaking position that you describe. But when the British public are confronted with people who are literally fleeing a war zone in Ukraine, and they know that they open up their own houses to them. So we cannot say that we are not.
But Cristo, no.
Well, no, because we don't. Because they're coming from France, and we don't know that they are Afghans fleeing a war zone.
But Cristo, the British government was not anything like as generous as the European Union. The European Union said to everybody who had a Ukrainian passport, they could live in the European Union for 3 years. The British government did not do that.
Oh, well, that's because we had that randy buffoon in charge. You know what I think of the randy buffoon.
But the British public... By the way, the former leader of the Conservative Party is other version. And that is not good. So I would very much like the British government to follow the European Union's far better policy with refugees, as far as that is concerned. All of this is complicated, and all of this is difficult.
It's more clear-cut that they are refugees. That's the point.
Yes, but at the same time, wouldn't it be better if we really, really helped the Ukrainians fight Vladimir Putin's killing machine?
Are we not doing that?
Why haven't we sent them a tank? Why aren't we sending them tanks? So the British tanks, I know they drive on the wrong side of the road. The Ukrainians are smart people. They can handle tanks that drive on the wrong side of the road. It doesn't matter. Why haven't we sent them a tank? Why haven't we sent them proper aircraft?
So I think my understanding
the kind of awful stuff I've seen
my
again
understanding
and again.
about Ukraine support is that other than the United States of America, Britain has actually been the biggest contributor to the war effort, going much further and faster than your beloved European Union. So I think.
No. So, for example, Estonia has actually given far more money than we have.
But that's because they basically border Ukraine, so it's much closer.
But however, you are right.
If we look at the graphs of aid that's gone to Ukraine after the United States of America, Britain is the biggest contributor to the war effort. And that's something we should all be proud of. So let's not be so critical of Britain all of the time. It's been really difficult listening to all of this constant criticism.
Afghan refugees who came, who were working for the government in Afghanistan, who were working for the British government in Afghanistan. We have, I think, 300 or 400 in our borough. These are people those who were able to get out. Some of them we left behind, we dumped them, didn't we? This was our mess. So people who've come over, who were working for the British government, and if they were to stay, they're either hiding or they're going to be killed. They know that, or their family. If their families are found and they can't find them, their families will be killed by the horrible situation that we left them in Afghanistan. So we've got 300 or 400 here. The difference between how the Ukrainians are welcomed and looked after, which is fantastic, and the Afghans is huge. It's absolutely huge. I know exactly what has happened. We get updates all the time. The Afghans are being moved out of hotels into temporary accommodation elsewhere, not the nice temporary accommodation, to little hostels and so on. the difference between how we're looking after them. Now, what's that about?
And what do you think it's about? I know you're trying to say that it's racist, essentially, aren't you? Is that what you're saying? Right, I see. Well, I would disagree on that
the
point.
Ukrainians speak
Look,
English.
ultimately,
They don't like us.
ultimately, I'm not sitting here saying that every single immigration policy or asylum-seeking policy that the Conservative Party has presided over has been a success. I think the withdrawal from Afghanistan, not just from the UK, by the way, but the whole of the NATO allies, was a complete disaster.
Including Joe Biden closing the airport.
Exactly.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
By the way, that's Donald Trump set the policy. So he said we're pulling out.
Yes, but Biden had 6 months to get it together.
It was so Donald Trump set the policy, and it made it very, very difficult. But there is a problem. There is a problem, and a massive problem, in that the people of Afghanistan didn't really want to fight for, and that's Nigel Farage attacking me right now. They didn't want to fight.
That's the Farage buzz.
They didn't want to fight for the government that the West kind of created for them, because there is a massive difference between ordinary Afghan society and how we think the world is, and that's a massive problem, which of course was created originally by the Russians, by their evil invasion in 1979. The past determines the future. So, anyway, that's a big, big mess, and we should do better with that. But it wasn't just Joe Biden's fault. I'm a massive fan of Joe Biden. I apologise.
And Albie, I find it really interesting. I understand what you're saying, and often, people on the sort of left of politics get told that they're being negative, or the Remain campaign was a negative campaign. Excuse me, everybody.
It's the Farage buzz again.
We'll finish it up in a second. But I suppose I wanted to end by saying, actually, the Rejoin campaign has become a positive, because the status quo was so much better than what we've got now. And I can think of another positive that we can end on. Jacob Rees-Mogg's gone.
Yeah. Well, has he? Yeah. I kind of want to.
I think he's resigned.
How do you feel about that? I mean, we're all, even you're supposed to be a Tory.
No, I don't love Jacob Rees-Mogg because of what the claptrap he spoke over Brexit, and I don't want the people who lied over Brexit particularly rewarded. I don't. I'd like good people to make the best of it, but not the people who lied over
Albie, just out of interest, did you vote for Remain or?
I supported Brexit in the referendum. Yes.
It's fine. Let's leave that there. And I tell you what, thank you so much. Sorry about the drill noises. You can tell we're live. But someone trying to get out. But that's all that we've got time for tonight. And I think it's been a really great debate. It kind of veered all over the place. But what did you think? And did anybody outrage you? Did anybody change your mind? You can let us know, literally right now. And if you're a member of Byline TV Plus, you can definitely have a look at all sorts of stuff. Or you can become a member right now and join us for the Table After Dark, our live members. That's when it gets really bad. We're going to have a Q&A, and it's your chance to decide the direction of the debate and put your questions directly to the panel. Or if you just want to tell someone that you think they're talking nonsense, be nice, you can do that too. So just go to byline.tv/join and use the code THETABLE, all capitals. Get your first month for just £2. It's less than a coffee these days. So if you want to join us for After Dark, we'll see you in 5. And if not, we'll see you next week. Good night. Thank you.